I was reminded of a conversation that I had a while back. It was very eye-opening, and I hope to have this person on as a guest at some point. But they were telling me about their young women's camp that they have been running. So, young women's camp, as I understand, has been running about the same way for 20 years or so. And a few years ago, the church had this youth leadership focused directive. So there was this campaign for the youth programs, the youth activities, and this was rolled into the youth camps as well. So I thought I would share some of the insights while they're on my mind. This friend of mine is in the young women's stake leadership in another stake, and she has had what sounds like great success having the young women lead their own camps. And so the highlights of that are that this friend of mine, this person that I know, being the stake women's leader, decided that it was her responsibility to play interference with the youth and the other adults. So the youth were brought together, young women, and young women were told, you are in charge of your youth camp. What do you want to do? And the young women started looking at each other and looking at the adults and kind of like, And she realized that the young women had an issue of trust, in that they didn't trust the adults in the room enough to present their ideas to the group of adults and young women. And so after a little bit of brainstorming, the adults were asked to leave the room, and this young women's leader came back in and said, okay, here's what I think is going on. And so I want to try something. I want you guys to talk amongst yourselves about what you want camp to look like without us in the room. And then you guys can decide who you want to present the ideas to first. And the young women were like, yeah, that totally makes sense. And we're going to present to you. And she has developed quite a bit of trust with the young women in terms of just demonstrating that she's willing to take on new ideas and think outside the box and not be so dogmatic or boxed in. So the young women sat down by themselves and started planning out young women's camp and how they wanted to do it. And then they presented, makes me emotional just thinking about this whole concept. They presented the ideas to this friend of mine. And she said, yeah, these are great ideas. This is absolutely marvelous. Thank you so much. I will do the work of presenting this to the stake leadership. So she took the young women's ideas, took them to the stake leadership with no young women present, and said, this is what we're going to do for young women's camp. And there was a bunch of ideas on there that were completely off the wall. Not like dangerous or bad, but just different. And the stake leaders were like, no, we can't do this. This isn't going to work. This is going to do bad things here and all this different stuff. And none of the concerns that the stake leadership had were like a no-go type of call. It wasn't like a showstopper. It was just concerns about the quality, not like the viability or the safety, but the quality of the camp. And this young woman's stake president leader said, those are all great concerns, and the young women's camp is going to look this way because this is the way the young women want it to look, and none of your concerns are showstoppers. And so the young women were able to do the young women's camp that they wanted to do with slight variation. And it was an amazing camp, and they've been doing it for 2 years now, and this next camp is even more wild. from what I hear. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So the one thing in the first camp that the adult leadership was struggling with was this spiritual night. So on one of the nights, it's the last night maybe, they wanted the young woman to go on this kind of walk in the dark, which is, it's fairly common for a youth activity to go walking through the dark, have like some kind of, get in touch with nature moment. And they wanted to have these little stations where they would talk about the gospel and bear testimony along the walk, which is, again, very normal. And this, the one thing that the adult leadership was not okay with was that the young women were requiring that no adults be present for that little walkabout, that the adults were not allowed. And so that was presented to the stake leadership, and the stake leadership was like, what? No, like we're going to be there. Why wouldn't we be there? And the young woman's stake president said, no, they don't want you there. You're not going to be there. It doesn't even matter why. I can think of a few reasons why, but we're not going to be there. And they're like, no, we have to be there. No, you can't. So the compromise they made in that example was that they would not be within hearing distance of what they were saying, but they would be able to see them. So eye shot. So they were standing afar off, 50 yards or whatever it is. And and it killed the adults. Like, they hated it. They hated not being close. They hated not hearing what was going on. They hated not being able to participate, not being able to guide, they hated it. But it was the highlight of the camp, apparently. They said it was incredible, and it was amazing, all this different stuff. And you can imagine why. The girls, I'm sure, had a blast not having the shadow of the adult judgment over them. Not that that's what it is, but that's what it feels like sometimes when you're a youth. So another example is how they camp and where they camp. So do you camp by unit? Do you camp by age? Do you camp just, with your friends? Like, how does that all work? And so they're playing with that, and that feels very contradictory to tradition that the adults have seen. And they once the youth were given permission to create their own camp, they started fine-tuning everything. They were talking about how the meals were going to go, like what different things would be said or not said, or activities, and how you would dress, and where you would go at different times, and like things that we've been doing for decades. They were challenging, saying, we need to change this. And the adult leadership basically said, well, no, we can't change it. Like, that's the way we've been doing it. And the youth would say, are we in charge or not? Like, you told us to do this. This is what we're asking for. And I think that's beautiful. There are obviously parameters around that. But by and large, from what I've seen, when the youth are asked to step up, they do step up. They do a great job. And I don't even think they need guidance. I think that's the wrong word. I think they need support and encouragement. And every once in a while they come up with an idea that's, not safe or something like that. But by and large, they just need to be able to have a safe place to be able to create their own experiences. And safe meaning they have to be around adults that they trust. If they don't trust you to support their ideas, they're going to pretend like they don't have any ideas. So if your kids are like, I don't know what to do for the activity or for camp or whatever, like no ideas are coming to my head, it's because they don't trust you. They don't trust you to support their ideas. Sorry. That's just the way it is. It's not that they don't have ideas. Like that. Yeah. Sorry. It's just the truth of it. So, food for thought. I'll get more material on that. Like I said, I have a friend who would have a lot more to say on that, and she will, and she's great. So I'll get her on.